CALP and CashCap. I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar. We've allocated up to 90 minutes to talk about an initiative and some opportunities related to addressing capacity gaps within cash and market-based programming. And we're going to be talking specifically about the capacity building scheme that was a collaboration between CashCap and CaLP, and our lessons learned from that experience, and how we might be able to look to the future for some things related to building capacity related to cash transfer programming. So a key part of the capacity building scheme was training, mentoring, and on-the-job learning and expert deployment are all various components to be sure that we're building capacity and improving cash transfer programming around the world. Give a quick overview of the agenda for our 90 minutes with a background and introduction, and then go right into the overview of the capacity building scheme as well as the lessons learned, and then looking more to the future, thinking about and describing the Building Individual Expertise program that has been developed as a result and outcome of the capacity building scheme. And to share a little bit of information about CashCap roster deployment, and then of course an opportunity to have a discussion and be hearing from you any ideas and thoughts of our past experiences, as well as how we might be able to move forward for the future. So there's presenters today from both CaLP and CashCap, and I'll invite people to introduce themselves as they're going to take over and contribute to the presentation as well. Again, my name is Martin Pittman. I'm the Global Capacity Building Coordinator for CaLP. So I'll hand it over now to Jimena, who is going to speak a little bit about the capacity building scheme from CashCap's perspective.
Hello everyone. Everybody hears me well? Yes? Okay, great. So I am Jimena Peroni. I am the interim learning and mentoring advisor from CashCap. I am part of the CashCap roster deployment. And my idea was to start with an introduction in order to explain why we are addressing as an overall way addressing the capacity gaps that the sector is facing. So cash transfer programming is an increasingly significant and component of humanitarian response, and as more people become involved in cash, the need to ensure quality and technical expertise is growing significantly. At different levels, technical, operationally, strategically, humanitarian responses are facing capacity gaps to ensure a timely, scalable, and quality cash response where appropriate. So the capacity gaps have evidence at different levels. We can find individual gaps where different professionals from the humanitarian community still face capacity gaps for an effective inclusion of cash within the humanitarian response, whether it's operational, technical, or strategical level. In addition to that, the number of cash experts is still far too limited. Several organizations are way too far from the needed internal investment in their staff, in organizational policies and tools to support cash within their own organization. And while many agencies have committed to it in the World Humanitarian Summit, therefore, to address these organizational capacity gaps, and this will be also a priority for many of them in the next 3 years. At the same time, within the coordination structures and the humanitarian architecture, there are still capacity gaps that clusters and intercluster coordination mechanisms face, and as well as national and local level in disaster-affected countries where response has evidence to have a lack of capacity to timely response with cash. We have selected this three way of addressing the capacity gaps, but also we can think about gaps on timeline, on the project cycle, on cash preparedness, and also from the targeted audience, UN, INGO, national NGOs, and governments. So in order to address the individual part of the capacity gap, um, the Cash Cap in collaboration with CaLP implemented during the last year a small-scale project led by um, um, to address these individual capacity gaps. The idea is it starts from the premise that standalone training components are not able to address these capacity gaps at individual and organizational levels, as well as the blockages that exist within the humanitarian architecture. So the objective was to strengthen and increase technical expertise on CTP by ensuring that an expanded and diversified pool of practitioners is confident in using cash and determining appropriate context-specific response to humanitarian needs. You can see there the theory of change on how this was linked to the learning pathway from the participants. So the capacity building scheme had 3 components with different type of participants that receive different level of support. So there were 4 participants from the standby partner rosters from the CIF and the Red R Australia that received only the component of training to face training that Jackie will share more with us. The 6 participants from the committee of practice receive the component of training and mentoring through a process of on-the-job application while they went back and continue working with their own organizations. On the other side, the 6 experts from NOCAP roster receive 3 components: the training, the mentoring, and a component that it was called placement that I will explain further. As you can see, there was different profiles. The program was targeted to mid and senior level from non-food security sectors, so it was pretty diverse. And 9 organizations participate in the scheme, whether sending their staff to the on-the-job application mentorships or hosting NORCAP experts. So to have one idea on what we refer to placement, the overall objective was to build experience-based competencies and understanding of cash market programming through on-the-job learning. That means that the project needed to find organizations that would be able to host NORCAPs and provide a learning environment to them. So placements were negotiated with the potential host agencies, and after discussions to identify entry points, to identify needs from the agencies, and from that match the expert profile, it was developed a placement TOR, which objective was to perform several tasks, but with a focus on learning objectives and learning outcomes. Then after this was negotiated and signed by the 2 parts, the NOCAP expert was deployed as a normal roster deployment. So I will go really fast on the performance because we will share with you the capitalization report tomorrow, and just to have an idea, that the current scheme was successful in overcoming different blocking factors thanks to this knowledge transfer and practical application and one-to-one support. 10 out of 12 agencies reported an increased institutional capacity to use cash. To have as an example, there were different initiatives like concept notes, proposals, partnership opportunities, strategy revision, etc. In relation to the level of engagement of the community of practice, there were like the 100%, the six of them. They felt now that they were more confident and they have the knowledge, the skills, and tools to engage in design, implementation, and monitoring of cash. The same happened with the NORCAP members. While they feel more confident to perform operational and technical function of cash, and they have participated in different initiatives at different levels and stages of the project cycle. So the idea is to get more on the components and what we have learned about it. And so it's clear that there are three components: the training, the mentorships, and on the job learning, that is to mentor community of practice plus placement for NORCAPs. So I give the floor to Jackie, that from CaLP, that she led the training component.
Thanks, Jimena. Can I just check you can all hear me? I'm assuming maybe someone can type, yep, there's some yeses going on of familiar names. Great. So good afternoon, everyone. As Jimena has just said, I'm just going to describe a little bit how the trainings went. I was hired as a consultant by CaLP as a training consultant, and my direct involvement was the delivery of the two trainings that this cohort of individuals went through. So as I know there's a lot of you that are listening that are seasoned trainers, I'll just say it straight out. What was really interesting about this training was to follow two separate trainings over a 3-month period. So there were 16 individuals that were selected for this course, and Jimena's just given an overview of how diverse they were, in terms of their technical skill set, from logisticians to protection experts. The nationalities, they came from 10 different countries, they were working in 9 different locations. So there were 16 individuals, and as a trainer, the most interesting thing about this was the fact that we got to see them twice. So we delivered a 5-day CaLP training, the typical CaLP level 2 training in March in Nairobi, and that was your classic 5-day training, going through all the feasibility and all the response analysis and design of cash transfer programs with them. And there were 2 of us training. So one was the CaLP capacity building officer, and then myself as the support consultant. And then 3 months later, we resaw the same group. This time we had the training in Addis Ababa, and we did a 4-day training in which we had an agenda that followed a modular approach. So we did cash and protection, we did cash and shelter, we did cash and response analysis, and then we had a full day where we worked on a scenario. So for those of you familiar with the CaLP trainings, they're very interactive, it's cumulative, you have exercises, and the group grows. But the difference between seeing them, in March and then going back to the same group, knowing they had been mentored through the mentoring scheme. There was Carol Ward and then Elena Bertole, who was the NORCAP mentor, who kept daily and weekly contact with the individuals and helped them with their placements and things. And just knowing that that community of practice had been set up in the March trainings, and that they'd all been in touch and even been in touch with us as trainers, and we were all preparing to meet again and take the training further, is really quite unique. So they were short, they were intense, we made them work hard, they delivered, and then since then, I've seen some of the 16 individuals in the field, on their placements or who've moved on and are now working on longer term cash assignments. It was a big mix, which was also very good. So you had, people working for NGOs, they were INGO workers doing their sector responses, with a couple who were more from donor perspective or who were on rosters like the Red R roster. And that mix in the classroom really played well to the materials that were available to us. And that's really what I wanted to highlight to you, just the mix, the fact that it was a small group, 16 is a fantastic group of people to train. It means everyone has to participate. No one could get away with not doing their work. and the fact that they kept in touch and really fed off each other. So we were really facilitating rather than just delivering, which was a very unique way of approaching training.
Thanks, Jackie. I think I'll step in and just add a little bit about the third column of the module development and piloting. CaLP, through the collaboration with CashCap, and the support was able to parlay the training contributions that we were making and the materials development into our broader effort to develop a wide range of new materials. And so through the last year and with the support, we were able to develop, or this information contributed to our module development, and some of you may be familiar with our new core approach to our capacity building work that's sort of replacing the level 1 and level 2 that has been used in the past, and that's in the process of being rolled out now. And furthermore, the specific specialized content that was developed for the second training workshop has contributed to the development of specialized modules specifically related to response analysis, where there was a 3-day course that's been completed and is in the process of being rolled out, and that's also been tailored into a 1-day overview course that's been piloted and is in the process of being refined for further rollout. And then we've also developed a quality assurance module for wash and shelter, where it complements the core technical training that we've developed as an add-on half-day training focus on looking at the design and implementation of CTP through the standards of wash and shelter. And that experience might actually inform thinking about how we complement our core training for particular sectors in the future. So I just wanted to add that information in, and I'll hand it back over to Jimena.
Okay, thank you. So in relation to the second component, that was the mentorship, as Jackie was saying, it had a really very good feedback on this component, because one of the main returns from this experience was that it increased the responsibility to fulfill the objectives that the mentor, in coordination and in collaboration with the mentee and with the participant, has set to achieve the learning outcomes that they were planning to do. And also the mentorship accompanied the participant to assess her or his individual progress, and which at the end increased the level of confidence in engaging in new initiatives, and encourage the application of new tools acquired during the first component of the training. Also, the mentor helped the participants to navigate in the vast array of cash literatures and tools, and to select the most appropriate one for their context and duties. They all agree that this component and this due to the program, their future assignments will be really improved, and all participants value highly the process of identifying and tracking and reviewing systematically the learning objectives, and the contribution from the mentor to identify these practical learning and application opportunities.
Jimena, may I interrupt you for just a moment? It looks like we're having some people that are having trouble hearing you well.
Okay.
Okay, so you might I might suggest just testing, mute your microphone and then turn it back on again, and then just be sure that you're speaking well into the microphone. Thanks. Oh, and it sounds as though it's sort of muffled as we see. Yep.
There, better? Do you hear me better there?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit better. I think people are noticing that the words still sound a little bit muffled, but it might just be the connection. So I guess encourage just to try to enunciate as well as possible so people don't hear it.
Okay. Let's hope. Okay. So, in relation to the third component on the job learning, and particularly about the placement, um, the placement and on the job learning was really good for the consolidation of learning. It provided a safe space to apply the training and the competencies acquired during the training and the mentorship. The process, the placement was really smooth and worked really well. The better the match from the competencies gaps between the participant and the agency match. So the more the needs from the host agencies to have the added value of the background expertise from the participant, the better for providing this learning environment, which I really appreciated from the host agencies when they were within their own task, within their own duties, and with their own operational deadlines. They also provided this learning environment to the NOCAP experts. So during the process, we focus on learning from the scheme and identifying enabling factors and limiting factors that we could share with the rest of the cash community. So in relation to the enabling factors, we could say that for placement specifically, the idea is that the match works okay. So the more number of placement that we can have, the better to have this match. For mentorship, the idea of tracking and having this learning pathway work really well in order to the participant have this plan for achievement and milestones and time frame, and which was the support required from the mentor to achieve this the set of learning objectives. We identify different factors that we think that fit for the cash community and for the cash implementation, and at the same time, I think that one of the best returns was, of course, the learning by doing components in terms of the consolidation of competencies. In relation to the project management, the project was really rich on monitoring and evaluation different indicators like confident initiatives, supported environment, but also it is true that if we wanted to learn to scale up and needed having more numbers of participants, it is also a need to develop a stronger quantitative indicators to evaluate during the whole process individual and also organizational behavior changes over time. In relation to overcoming the challenge that we have encountered, I think that the more you involve the host agencies and the participate agencies from the beginning, so they can contribute to the process of identifying the learning outcomes, also involving sometimes, depending on the organization, the departments of HR or career development departments from organization. It's also good to have the agency buy-in. In relation to the opportunities that we have identified as CashCap, we developed a graduation pathway which defines the steps that NOCAPs could have in order to, in the future, participate as a standalone CashCap roster deployment, and in order to fulfill the objective of increasing the pool of practitioners expert in cash. So as you can see in the slide, it's the capacity building scheme was the first step, and the second step is part of having a normal NORCAP deployment, but with a cash transfer focus. 3 out of the 6 NORCAP experts now, after the CBS, they were extended, and they stay with their host organizations 3 more months to strengthen their the work that they have started, and this was supported by NORCAP. The next step could be the training missions with a CashCap expert, and in the future it could be the graduation would be to be deployed as a CashCap expert. Another opportunities that more opportunities, suggestions, or opportunities that we have learned during the process is that in this case it was a CashCap CaLP collaboration, but what we are suggesting is that depending on the geographical area and depending on the context, you can explore diverse business models adapted to the context. So we suggest some guiding questions, like which are the agencies capacity building capacity initiatives within that context, who is better positioned to provide guidance, take the most of the CaLP regional offices where there are the clusters, different rosters, how can we engage more and more professionals on and mentorship components, etc. In relation to placement and secondment, as NORCAP, it's a roster. We did it like we needed a hosted organization, but there is plenty of diverse kind of secondment and placement. We suggest 2 or 3 of them. Like you have internal and external. That internal placement is a member of their own organization that could move from one position to another. I don't know, as an example, a capital logistician can go to a head of project in a cash operational environment, for instance, or between sectors. Also between externals, that exchanges among different organizations. Also to consider that sometimes, depending on the learning pathway, the person would need to be at the regional level, country level, or base level, depending on the position, and also depending on the position, also to work with placements or secondments at the strategical, technical, or operational level. As mentioned before, training missions, the purpose of these PER missions, it's also to facilitate on-the-job training, and it's good to support less experienced professional by leveraging the experience of the senior member. Also, Martin will explain in the next session the Building Individual Expertise program that was developed as a way of scaling up or building on the experience of the CBS by NORCAP and CaLP. And from a CashCap perspective, it is the graduation pathway that will guide CashCap and NORCAP to scale up and to support the scale up of the CBS. So this is from my side on the CBS learning, and I will give the floor to Martin for the BIP program.
Great, thanks, Jimena. And again, as I typed earlier, I invite people to type in any questions or comments that you might have into the chat box, or also feel free to raise your hand and pose a question or make a comment. Welcome as much participation as possible. Jimena outlined very much the structure and the experience of the capacity building scheme, which was, as described, a small-scale pilot initiative. And as Cash Cap and CaLP reflected on that experience and looked to the future, we have articulated a program called the Building Individual Expertise Program, with the somewhat enjoyable acronym of BEEP. And we put together a concept note in terms of partnerships, in terms of activities and scope for that, and we're in the process of trying to advocate for some financial support to implement BEEP in the coming years. Just to give a bit of an overview of it overall is that it builds on and complements the experience from the capacity building scheme by really focusing on improving the cash transfer programming design and delivery around the world by investing at the individual level in an intense way of using the mentoring and the placement support as a way of really cementing the capacity building activities that can come via a workshop as well. It does include both the training as a cohort, and I think Jackie's contributions related to seeing the group as a cohort that we get to follow through and work with is a key element of that, and that supports the mentoring and then ultimately enhances the placements that can be made as well. As I say, we are in the process of trying to secure longer-term funding for BEEP, but we have had an opportunity in West Africa to pilot a version of BEEP, if you will. And so that opportunity came about in 3 ways in West Africa. The first is that the regional cash working group has requested that CaLP support to create a pool of multi-sector cash experts. Okay? The second is a regional initiative or to collaborate as agencies are developing minimum expenditure baskets and really thinking about multi-purpose grants, the design and implementation, and they're invested in collaborating together for that. And so this is an opportunity to have a focus on building expertise, particularly related to MEVs and MPG design and implementation. And then, of course, we have some support in West Africa from USAID's OFDA office, and that's allowing us to pilot this initiative in West Africa. As being outlined in West Africa, the objectives are to identify and support 8 to 12 practitioners over a 10-month program, right? With the ultimate objectives of enhancing available CTP expertise and creating a pool of individuals that can be working beyond their country duty station. Specifically, those 8 to 10 practitioners will be involved in attending training as a cohort, but then also having an opportunity to have some reserved seats, if you will, in some specialized courses that they may be particularly interested because of their needs or their professional development interests. They will also have access to online learning, as all members of the community of practice have. And they'll also have an opportunity, if it suits their needs, to participate in training of trainers workshops that CaLP offers. BEEP in West Africa, just as the BEEP strategy overall in CBS is going to include also mentoring from CaLP's regional office, as well as maintaining regular communication as a cohort. And then the vision is that they will have placement and secondment opportunities to put their learning into practice. And that may be collaboration of organizations across countries. It may be moving from one country office within an organization to another. It will depend on what the opportunities and needs are as they arise. The West Africa office is in the process of identifying participants right now, and the participants seem to be coming from, and there has been interest from implementing agencies in the region as well as donor agencies in the region. So in the same way that a capacity building scheme aim to have a diverse group of participants, so does Deep West Africa. And they'll be coming from regional offices as well as country programs. So that I'll leave Deep West Africa there, and certainly in the future, as we're rolling that out, we'll have more opportunities to share the experience and let you know how things have been going there and how that might ultimately be able to inform the implementation of BEEP in other regions as well. So now I'll pass it over to Mary and Vic to talk a little bit more about NORCAP and CashCap specifically.
Thank you so much, Martin. First, can I ask, can everybody hear me? Yeah, good. So, I'm the manager of CashCap roster, which is part of the NORCAP family. And as you can see on that photo there, I also have a CashCap. I think it's the only CashCap in the world, and I'm a very, very lucky woman. This has taken 10 minutes into my new job in the NRC NORCAP offices in Oslo, and I look a little bit bewildered, but also happy. Anyway, I'm here to talk a little bit about the purpose of CashCap and give you some facts and figures. And I will also talk shortly about how to apply for CashCap expertise and how to become a member of the CashCap roster. So, at the onset, as Jimena pointed out, we have seen an increase in the use of cash transfer programming in emergency responses, which naturally has led to an increase in the demand for cash expertise. And simultaneously, we see that we struggle. We do not have adequate expertise worldwide to meet these demands. And we can see that, for instance, very often we see repostings of vacancies, for instance, at the CaLP group pages. Is difficult to find to fill positions. And when we experience these capacity gaps, we need, of course, to build more capacity, as we have talked about. But we also need to ensure that the capacity available is used where it matters the most, where we can have the largest impact. And this, in short, is a key purpose of CashCap. So this is the same slide as Jimena showed you. CashCap has a steering committee consisting of 11 members by and large, including ourselves. And the CashCap steering committee has determined that we, CashCap, should have a multi-agency mandate. We should address the capacity gaps at overarching levels. And as such, our role is to address capacity gaps within the humanitarian architecture and also to support governments in countries that are suffering from recurrent disasters and or prolonged conflicts, both in overseeing cash programming, but not least, as we hope at least to do, also to work on improving cash preparedness and to work cash into existing contingency plans, and hopefully in the future also strengthening of social protection systems. So this means that CashCap, by and large, is providing capacity. Our senior experts fill a role in the response. However, most all our CashCappers also do some form of capacity building while in the field, such as conducting trainings in cash transfer programming or arranging context-specific workshops while they are on mission. We have developed 3 different profiles, which even I struggle to keep apart because, of course, there is a lot of overlaps. There is a lot of elements of technical support in coordination and vice versa. However, technical experts typically are deployed to conduct cash feasibility analysis, such as determining where and when cash is the appropriate modality and feed this into response planning and design. However, the technical requests we have received have been more for developing standard operating procedures, that is harmonizing a cash response across many or even all agencies in a defined area. Ideally, of course, we should have received these requests for setting up standard operating procedures at the onset of a response, but the fact is that very often we receive them some months into the response when an agency or several agencies, as we are multi-agency mandated, get together and request a Cash Cap expert to come and clean up the mess when it's become clear that everybody's doing different things. When it comes to coordination, because of our multi-agency mandate, of course, we do receive a lot of coordination requests. There number of people who have worked with cash coordination at an interagency or of course intercluster level, and not least people, cash experts who have worked with host governments, this is limited at a global level. So therefore there is a need for a certain capacity building within the roster as well. And we have recruited people who have significant cash expertise, but very often they are experienced in working with single agency responses, often operationally. And we support them in becoming, good and qualified cash coordinators through providing mentoring and regular backup and support. And we do have one full-time mentoring advisor, or I should say she's currently in Yemen with OCHA, so she doesn't really have time to follow up her mentoring role as dedicatedly as she would want to. Jimena also has talked about the concept of twinning missions. That is that we send a senior and mid-level cash expert together on a mission, which basically function as an on-the-job training for 3 months. And then the senior expert can move on to another mission, which is in fact a very, very efficient way of training up good cash coordinators. This is a very, very heavy slide. I'm sorry. Terms such as request received and endorsed and met, this probably doesn't make much sense outside people working with rosters. My boss once told me that when they started ProCap, which is the oldest specialty roster for within the NorCap family, they started ProCap in 2005 when Darfur was, on the height of the conflict in Darfur was, in the height of crisis, and they expected to receive a lot of requests for protection specialists and didn't receive any. It was completely quiet. And CashCap had some of the similar experience when we opened for requests in early 2016. This really picked up throughout the year, and towards the end we had more requests than we were able to fill. We have endorsed, we have filled 19 requests this far, and this may not seem like a very high number, but when you bear in mind that each cash cap expert is supporting it's a multi-agency mandate, they are supporting a response, not a single agency. This is actually a rather high number. And also that we have been able to meet 82.6% of the endorsed requests when you consider how difficult it is to fill positions for senior cash experts. And this we did within 1 year of existence. This is actually very well done. But we have worked incredibly hard, especially the past 2 months, been constantly recruiting, trying to fill positions. I think we have recruited 7 people since Christmas and 2 before. So we have increased the rosters with 9 more very strong, very qualified members. This is just a slide to show you a little bit of, or show you the relatively large variations in emissions at the host agencies that has been supported by CashCap this far. And then a bit about lessons learned. When it comes to the mismatch between number of available senior experts and the demand for senior expertise, of course, this is something we knew already, but we know it even better now. What has become increasingly clear is that a majority of senior cash experts, those who have 15 to 20 years experience, they prefer not to take on long missions, maximum 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And we only accept members who are willing to go on at least 3 months missions. And this, the typical cash cap, the length of deployments, it's typically for around 6 months. We have received requests for some shorter deployments. However, the host agency argues that cash cappers are often requested to instigate a lasting change, and therefore they need to stay for a certain length of time. And also that cash cappers can provide continuity, and we all know that this problem with a very rapid turnover is an increasing problem in humanitarian response today, where many humanitarian workers are deployed for only some weeks at a time. We therefore also often receive a number of extension requests, which, by the way, we do not count as separate requests. Our CashCap members are telling us that CashCap is becoming established as some very attractive rosters. They are approached by, Cash colleagues asking, how can I become a member of this roster? Which, of course, we are very, very grateful for. With activity level that we had planned, but we will revert to that, lack of funding. But the activity level we had planned, we hope to increase the number of roster members from 20 to either 40 or 60. The difference is that if we can have 3 people on a rapid response team, that means people who can be deployed on a short notice because they are on a full-time contract, we need a smaller roster. If we don't have a rapid response team, we need more members because, of course, people are not, they are not forced to take on a deployment. They are taking on other jobs beside. So we started with a very high level of a very high number of requests. So we have actually already committed the funding we had available for 2017, which anyway was only from 1st April, it was only 3 million Norwegian kroner. And we are sending out several people starting their missions now in April. So we have actually stopped receiving requests. We have, in addition to Fiji, Sri Lanka, Somalia, Niger, Kenya, etc., we also have been in contact with Northern Uganda and the Global Health Cluster. So there's a lot of entities and agencies out there who would like to discuss the possibility of receiving a cash expert. However, we have now said that we cannot receive any more requests before we have secured funding, which is very unfortunately. Still, I wanted to include a link to this website where you can find more information about how to apply for a CashCap expert. There is a form there that is downloaded with a standardized TOR, and it says that it is to be sent to the request.norcap@nrc.no. We also have stopped recruiting people because until we have secured more funding. With one exception, we still need French speakers. We have an open position in Mali to research and negotiate a minimum expenditure basket on behalf of the whole response in northern Mali. So anybody knows of experienced French MEB research expert, please ask the person to contact me. We have streamlined recruitment because this takes a long time when we are to employ as many people as we intended to do and as we still hope to do. So we screen CVs, of course, and the people who have we invite people for video interviews, which is it is very efficient. This also means that we don't need to be in the same room at the same time. The lovely lady you see at the photo there is Daisy Bond. She's our recruitment advisor. And this means that we independently of each other, we can review the videos and then we write specific follow-up questions and then we do a Skype or a phone interview, and this really saves us time. So this was a little bit about the CashCap roster. I hope that you have some questions for us. This was all from my side for now. Martin?
Great, thanks, Marianne. So I guess I'd like to open up the conversation to everyone and see if there's any questions or comments related to the capacity building scheme that was piloted, related to BEEP as envisioned and being rolled out in West Africa, or specifically related to CashCap deployment and the roster itself. Feel free to raise your hand or to put something in the chat box. Maybe Marianne, if I could start by asking a question about the roster itself. Again, I understand that the recruitment for the roster is on hold right now, but in general, are you envisioning that the roster is always made up of consultants who then have the flexibility to go on the kind of deployment that you get requests for, or is it ever logical for somebody who has full-time employment to go ahead and join the roster?
Yes, we do have. Sorry, I have to get you on now. I don't know why. We do have some people who have arrangements with their employer, saying that yes, they can actually go away for missions for up to 3 months. But of course, it's not everybody who is as fortunate that they can actually have a full-time job and then also be allowed to go away on short notice. We also have some, I would say, professional roster members, people who do not take on any other assignments, but only work with CashCap deployments. Since we have only been in existence for a year, I think I have to draw a little bit on the experience from ProCap, GenCap, and I would say partially ACAPs here. And they have, full-time roster members who only do deployments for ProCap and GenCap. We are not quite there yet. We are not as established as they are yet.
Great, thanks. I'm looking in the chat box. Oh, good, yes, CBS, I think it's good. Oh, so Zara has had experience with deployments that they've hosted, right? That was good on both ends, yeah. Great, thanks. Is there anything particular you want to share about those experiences, or overall it was just a positive experience for you? And feel free to turn on your microphone if you'd like. And has anyone else had experiences with deployments, either seeing them or hearing of them within your organization? Oh, fair enough. Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, this is really an opportunity for us to be sharing information from you, and if we've been able to do so, then great. We'll certainly be in regular contact as we're trying to move some things forward, and we're all hopeful to be able to have support to extend the roster deployments as well as to make further investments in BEEP to build the expertise that we all know is necessary in the field for the work. So, yeah. Oh, Jackie, do you want to share a little bit about your CashCap deployment with CaLP? Obviously, some of us know that, but feel free if you want to speak up to that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want to speak about it unless anyone's interested, but it was just to say it was my first experience of being on the CashCap. I was, as Marianne said, I made myself available for up to 4 months, and instead of being flung into some UN agency somewhere to do coordination, suddenly I got given the chance to open CaLP's Middle East office. So, and what definitely I saw in the Middle East where so many of the CashCap deployees were in the field, and I just really saw how they were filling the gaps and they were doing the work that perhaps a lot of the cash actors in the Middle East wouldn't have been able to, especially the UN agencies. And the few individuals, who are on the roster and who don't mind being deployed once or twice, I really saw the benefit of that just by being there the last few months. I just wanted to say that what Marianne says definitely works.
Great, thanks. Jimena has been deployed. She's about to be deployed again. There was a question about longer deployments. Is that, Marianne, is that what you'll put on the agenda?
Yes, NORCAP is typically deploying for 3 to 6 months, and CashCap followed the same 3 to 6 months rule. However, also NORCAP is very often extending requests beyond 6 months. I think the argument about CashCappers instigating a lasting change, actually needing a bit of time, and also the argument on providing continuity in, prolonged conflicts, that these are good arguments, and I therefore think that we should look at the possibility of extending requests, which we actually have done. We have had one in Greece for 9 months now. Dana has been with the protection cluster. You will be with the protection cluster for 12 months, I think. So, but maybe we should systematize this a little bit more. And Fizz, and we have a lot of CashCap members on this list.
Great. I see Zara's question about CaLP in the Middle East. As Jackie pointed out, she played a key role in getting CaLP activity started in a regional office established in the Middle East, in Amman. And that office is in the process of being recruited for. So CaLP is continuing to engage in the Middle East, and we have funding from GFO to support that work. So we are there, and I guess we are staying, is what I would say. Great. Unless there's any other comments or questions, then maybe we'll go ahead and wrap up. And unless Marianne or Jimena have other things to say, I'd like to thank everybody for their participation, and look forward to staying in touch and wish everybody all the best.